If some little jerk's penny throw caused you to have a full-blown Sherlock Holmes on DMT level premonition of a horrific mass death tragedy about to occur, of course you would try to save everyone. But if every single person you saved began mysteriously dying in freak accidents, what would you do? Iris Campbell cheated death, had a baby, and her babies grew up to have more babies. All the while, Death was too busy engineering Ruby Goldberg traps for some other poor saps who were lucky or unlucky enough to sidestep the rake. Now it's back for blood, and there is a whole family tree full of meat piñatas to whack. If they're gonna have any shot at a new lease on life, they'll need to figure out Death's game. Who it kills, when it strikes, how it hunts, and most importantly, how to cheat it. Again, I'm going to break down their entire bloodline's mistakes, what they should do, and how to beat the blood curse in Final Destination. Bloodlines. The year is 1968. Iris and her boyfriend Paul are having a fancy date night at the brand new Skyview restaurant on its opening day. Paul takes her up to the top where he proposes. Iris says yes, and that she's pregnant with his child. They kiss, hug, and take in the beautiful sunset. It's nearly perfect. Until someone's throws a penny off the roof. This relatively small action triggers a premonition in Iris. Premonition isn't really the right word. She has a full-blown Inception DMT-grade trip where she lives out the next 10 minutes in excruciating detail. In those next 10 minutes, Murphy's Law absolutely shits on everyone. That penny the kid threw off the roof got sucked into an air vent where it jammed up a fan blade. The fan blade's motor torqued on the blade's rotational force, effectively firing the penny out at handgun muzzle velocity. This penny, traveling at roughly 1,200 feet per second, nicked a nearby gas line. The gas began filling the entire Skyview restaurant. The first piece of Death's plot was in place. The second, a piece of the dance floor chandelier became loose from the loud music and dancing. This pretty sharp, weighty sickle impacting was enough to create a deep crack in the 3-inch thick glass floor. Is this enough? No. Death's no simpleton. The bolts in the brace beams supporting the dance floor began wiggling out from all the swinging and hopping. With the stage now set, Death's plan has enough redundancy to ensure complete carnage of the unsuspecting Skyview patrons. Iris and Paul head downstairs and join in on the dancing. The glass begins to spiderweb out, the cracks deepening with each beat. On the final hop of the song, the floor completely blows out beneath them. Paul hangs on for a second, until his shard breaks off too, sending him plummeting to the concrete below. A lady gets set on fire by the chef. Instead of stop, drop, and rolling or taking her blazing clothes off, she frantically runs around waving her arms. Of course, this only fans the flames. Doesn't really matter though. The gas pouring out of the ventilation shaft ignites, and half the restaurant instantly explodes. A handful of people melt before Iris's eyes. The elevator bro yells out for everyone whose skin isn't dripping off to evacuate through the stairwell. Damn, would they use ready-mix concrete? Well, guess the next best escape route would be the elevator, huh? Nope. Now for the last part of Death's plan. The brace joint gives out and half the Skyview splits off, sending a dozen more people back to the ground at terminal velocity, as well as a piano. Iris and a little boy are the last to go, dangling off the side of the destroyed structure, held on only by the engagement ring on her finger. Their combined weight peels her finger skin off like a corn dog, and they too disappear into the wreckage below. But, like I said, nobody actually died. This was Iris's premonition. She saw the glass cracking and warned everybody in time. She got everyone out to safety before the whole tower exploded and came crashing down. Why did Iris have the vision that showed her Death's schemes? Can't say. Totally inexplicable. But it was this vision that foiled Death's super cool plan. Like, this kid throws a penny off the roof, which, cuts a gas line, and then Butter's shoe flies off and hits the chandelier, which cracks the glass, and then when the beat drops, everybody falls through, and then, like, everyone explodes and the whole building falls apart in crazy ways and stuff. Was the building collapse caused by a rogue penny, a chandelier, and some 1960s swing dancing supremely unlucky? Yeah. But was it entirely preventable? Also yes. It's like that saying, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Well, here, unluckiness is where death's work meets opportunity in the form of piss-poor engineering. In well-built structures, gas lines are made of black iron pipe and run through dedicated utility chases. They're not shoved into ventilation ducts for obvious reasons. A gas leak in the HVAC system would spread rapidly and silently, turning the entire structure into a fuel air bomb ready to blow the instant someone orders a flaming sambuca. Building codes are very clear about keeping gas lines and HVAC completely separate so that this type of disaster is prevented. The emergency stairwell crumbling apart like that is pretty insane. In buildings like this, emergency stairwells are part of the reinforced concrete core, basically the backbone holding the entire tower up. They're built to take massive loads, resist wind and earthquakes, and stay standing even if the outer shell collapses. So when that thing falls apart like wet drywall, something is seriously wrong. Like, they mixed cornflakes into the concrete level wrong. The glass floor shattering like that is straight up negligence. In real high-rises, these platforms use tempered laminated structural glass, thick multi-layered panels bonded with PVB, built to hold together even when cracked. They're designed to handle heavy foot traffic and absorb serious impacts. One falling chandelier shard takes it out? That's not structural glass. That's movie set sugar glass. Either they skipped the lamination, skimped on edge support, or threw in single pane display case glass where load rating safety glass should have been. Either way, whatever interior decorator decided to hang a chandelier full of dagger-pointed sickles over a glass dance floor suspended 50 stories up was a fucking idiot. The elevator not having multiple suspension cables that are overrated for the max weight of the elevator, no safety brakes ready to clamp onto the guide rails, and apparently no counterweighting system is ridiculous. The cross-beam bolts popping loose because people were dancing too hard? No. Those beams are structural steel braces meant to stabilize the tower and handle serious lateral loads. The bolts anchoring them should be high-strength structural fasteners, A325 or A490, installed with a turn-of-nut method or tension control bolts that shear off when the correct preload is reached. These aren't just tightened, they're calibrated to clamp steel with thousands of pounds of force and resist vibration, fatigue, and dynamic sway. A packed dance floor might shake the place a little, but nowhere near enough. Orders of magnitude nowhere near enough to back out or shear bolts from a properly made structural joint. If they're popping loose, it's because someone forgot to spec the right fasteners and made a panic run to the local hardware store for general purpose machine bolts that looked similar but weren't rated for structural tension. No torque control, no pre-tension, no locking hardware, just structural suicide at 494 feet. I could see an amateur YouTube home builder making these kind of mistakes, but no way this Skyview gets cleared open for business with these existing critical engineering flaws until they get fixed. And that means Death would need to go back to the drawing board and come up with a much more realistic scheme, like a plane ramming into it or something. Well, it all worked out happily after all, right? Wrong. No good deed goes unpunished. And by saving dozens of lives at the Skyview that day, Iris has unintentionally caused a generational death. Death, having been cheated out of its glory, began killing the survivors in the order that they were meant to die. Slowly, very slowly. So slowly that many of the survivors went on to have children who were never meant to exist. and those children went on to have more children who were never meant to exist. This is what happens when you procrastinate, Death. Your problems multiply. You know the saying, an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. Iris was only a few months pregnant when she cheated the Skyview disaster. Death could have ended it right there. Maybe it doesn't like killing fetuses. Maybe it was too busy. But by letting her live, she was one of those who had a kid who had more kids. And now Death's got another whole-ass bloodline to wipe out. The hereditary nature of the blood curse means Death has to start hacking through her entire ancestral tree, limb by limb, starting at the root. Iris. Why not just kill in any order? Just because, okay? Death's cleaning up this mess and it's doing it by the books. Only it won't be so easy. You see, Iris was pretty shaken up at having an extremely lucid daymare that predicted the collapse of the entire structure, because from her perspective, maybe she was just nervous about the glass floor and her mere anxiety prompted her to warn everyone. But there was no way that she could have anticipated the explosion and the total structural failure without the premonition. She witnessed everyone dying, including herself, in the same premonition that accurately predicted the collapse. Yet she was able to prevent the deaths from occurring. You can easily see how the Skyview disaster would have entirely consumed Iris's innocence, her future, her life. Iris became highly paranoid and situationally aware, as one would. It's this paranoia that most likely led to her discovery of Death's plans. Her fiancé Paul would have talked her down from her apparent insanity, until he was killed in an accident a year or so later. Wait, an accident? Just an accident. No logging trucks? No car getting stuck on the railroad tracks? No dudes in Dodge Chargers towing a corrupt Brazilian drug lord's vault through the city streets? Whatever. It was Paul's death that caused Iris to look into the later demise of anyone who she had saved that night. This would have revealed a pattern of freak accidents and deaths which occurred in the same order that those in her premonition died. An order further evidenced by the fact that she and the little boy named William Bloodworth were the last to die in her premonition, and they hadn't been hunted or killed yet. Iris sought out Bloodworth to save him from Death's eventual reclamation, and she succeeded. Together, they managed to stay ahead of Death's elaborate traps for decades. In that time, they began researching everything: patterns, freak accidents, other cursed survivors, and anyone who managed to break the curse for good. Here's what they learned. You can hide for years, maybe even decades, but eventually Death just stops playing games and gives you something slow, like terminal cancer, which is exactly what happened to both Iris and Bloodworth. If you kill someone else, you inherit the time that they had left. Though there's no way to actually know how much time left that person had. Even if you kill an infant, you don't know if that infant was fated to die from SIDS the next week. So this is a highly unreliable method that's far too risky unless you commit mass murder. Just saying. It is an option. Now for the big tamale. If your heart flatlines and you're revived before brain death, you break the chain, which seems a bit careless on Death's part. Really, a person's heart stopping is your criteria. Bro, humans have ubiquitously been restarting heartbeats since the 50s. Maybe it's time to update the full brain death. Anyway, Kimberly Corman is the only known case where this worked. She cheated Death by intentionally drowning herself, was resuscitated, and for decades, there's been no sign that Death ever resumed hunting her or anyone else from the Route 23 pileup. Her case is the only real proof that the curse can be broken. However, this isn't some up, down, left, right cheat code. There's a serious catch. According to Bloodworth, if you fuck with Death and lose, things get very messy. By messy, he means the Death won't just stick to the chain. It'll start taking collateral, killing people who were never meant to die. We know Bloodworth was well aware of Kimberly's case, what she did, how she died, how she was resuscitated, that Death seemingly left her alone afterward, and that there was no messy retaliatory collateral. He absolutely would have shared that with Iris, which begs the question, Why didn't Iris attempt the same thing with the help of Bloodworth? After all, he's already cursed, so it's not like he's gonna be in any more danger than he's already in, and it's not like they have a lot of options here. They're both terminally ill at this point, going to die, and when they do, none of their clueless, dismissive descendants will be able to stop death from power swinging that scythe. Besides, both your terminal illnesses could very well be sent into remission by exploiting this loophole. I mean, you both have been successfully hiding from death all this time, and both came down with a terminal illness. I'd say it's reasonable to believe that the cancer's connected with death's plan somehow, and that by cheating your death, that illness could very well be insta-cured. My only guess is that maybe they were scared that the fallout for f***ing with death would get more people killed somehow, but I don't think collateral from effing with death is as big of a concern as they're letting on, mainly because I think that they're misinterpreting death's scope and mechanism. Later in the movie, Eric, who actually isn't one of Iris's descendants because he was born out of an affair, tries to help Bobby, who is one of Iris's descendants, cheat death by triggering his peanut allergy in a hospital where he could be revived immediately. Eric's act of deliberately helping Bobby to cheat death led to him getting folded like a lawn chair inside of an MRI machine. Bobby, while still choking on his Reese's Pieces, caught a vending machine coil straight through the brain. First level logic would suggest that simply helping someone cheat death extends the curse to the Good Samaritan. But going back to what Bloodworth said, if you fuck with death and lose is the crux here. Had Eric and Bobby not taken 10 whole minutes to concoct their plan in a room housing a goddamn high-powered MRI machine, it might have worked. The curse might have been broken, but they lost because they were idiots who tried to cheat death while standing in a figurative minefield where 100 different things could go wrong, and took their sweet time doing it. While they definitely should have known better at this point, considering this occurred after Bloodworth himself gave them this advice, whoever designed that MRI machine needs to be sued. A 7 Tesla MRI is high-end research hardware, double the strength of top clinical 3T systems, and capable of accelerating metal at lethal speeds. They'd be housed in ACR Zone 4, where access is tightly controlled, badge-locked doors, self-closing alarms, and mandatory ferromagnetic screening. Once energized, the magnet stays at full field. There's no power dial. All command systems are outside the room. The only internal control is a quench button that dumps cryogens to collapse the field. Systems like this are built with layered safeguards, door interlocks, metal alarms, software kill protocols, and manual emergency stops. The idea that Eric and Bobby could just waltz into this room and accidentally crank it up to Fast and Furious levels without alert or abort procedures is entirely unrealistic. Even if this was the most poorly secured, haphazardly designed MRI system in the United States, all Eric would need to do to avoid getting his Prince Albert dethroned would be to take a couple steps to the side. The magnetic field is strongest inside and in front of the bore, but the field's magnetic pull drops off sharply just outside the central axis. All this to say, Eric and Bobby made a bloody mess because they lost, and they lost because they were slow and stupid. Kimberly won because she was quick, thorough, and never gave death a chance to intervene. Iris and Bloodworth could have won too if Bloodworth just jacked an AED from Target, carefully drove over to Iris's place while avoiding any heavy construction zones or traffic, strangled her, checked for a pulse to confirm flatline, then hit her with that charge to 360. Obviously, he could be a bit more thorough than that, but you get the point. After which, Iris could do the same Z's to him. And all this would be done in the safety of the hell trap that she calls her sanctuary from death. Honest to God, I have no idea what Iris is thinking here. The cabin that she's been holding up at is littered, filled with sharp objects and debris that Death could use to kill her with. What's the point of all the spike traps? Death is immaterial, and obviously wouldn't be stopped by such madness. Does she think Death is gonna conjure up a wave attack of fish people? I don't know. Maybe it's to prevent an Amazon driver from tossing a box full of mercury fulminate onto her front doorstep. But in that case, she could have just as easily made a sign out of cardboard that says she shoots Amazon drivers on sight. Death needs things to manipulate in order to remove your existence from the timeline. By removing as many things as possible, you mitigate its ability to scheme and influence. A controlled access, padded room with a non-cursed person delivering you pre-packaged food and supplies would be the absolute safest. Iris's cabin is about the complete opposite of where you'd want to stay while figuring out how to beat death. No chance that she actually survived this long living there. In any case, Iris tries to warn her family by constantly sending them obituaries and pictures of dead bodies. Naturally, they all thought that she was a complete psycho. I'm not really sure how she could have more effectively convinced them, besides presenting a clear pattern to the deaths, along with proof of the sheer number of freak accidents that contributed to these deaths. Maybe she could have had Bloodworth come in and corroborate her story, being one of the survivors whose mom would have been taken by death relatively soon after the Skyview incident. Though I'm highly doubtful that this would have been more persuasive. The only true way to understand it is by burning your hand on the stove, so to speak. This is why, again, I think she should have attempted to break the curse herself. Yes, she risks it backfiring or her dying for good, but every day that she's breathing and doesn't attempt it, she's risking death claiming her, then coming for the rest of her lineage. At present time, Iris's granddaughter Stephanie suddenly begins having the exact same premonition as Iris did before the Skyview disaster. Why just her? Why after all this time? Why the exact same premonition? Can't say. Totally inexplicable. What is explicable is the negative effects it's having on her social life and schoolwork. These aren't just nightmares that she has in her sleep. They're full-blown panic attacks where she habitually goes unconscious, then wakes up full-on screaming like her blood's on fire. Stephanie's recurring premonition instigates her to go to Iris's medieval fortress looking for answers. All she finds is the incoherent ramblings of a deeply traumatized geriatric. Iris tells Stephanie that her premonition must have been passed down the bloodline around the same time that she received a terminal diagnosis. Then she hands over her sketchbook, her personal brain dump of everything that she's learned about death's patterns, rules, sequences, and survivors. But instead of a coherent guide, it's a chaotic mess. Cluttered notes, unfiltered thoughts, random sketches, and cryptic observations. It's nearly impossible to follow, and most of it's completely irrelevant to anyone but Iris. Like this handwritten note squeezed between a sketch of her weather vane and a wind chime. You don't have to buy any, you can make it, but stay away from power tools. The whole thing is full of schizo nonsense. No wonder nobody believed her. Good God, put a TLDR on the first page and explain it like I'm 5. Make it simple, structured, and actionable. If you have a premonition and save people, death will kill them in the order that they were meant to die, usually through freak accidents. Back it up with obituaries and articles tied to the Skyview disaster. Provide contacts like Kimberly or Bloodworth who've seen this happen and have experience with death ripping through a chain of people. Lay out the rules, the sequence, how it kills through Ruby Goldberg traps. Then clearly explain how Kimberly beat it, and how you can too. Stephanie refuses to believe that her nightmares are actually evidence of a death curse, and tries to leave before the crazy old bat performs some voodoo on her. In a last-ditch effort to convince Stephanie that the curse is real, Iris steps outside the safety of her cabin. Unfortunately, all Iris accomplished was passing the knowledge of the curse off to her granddaughter, who doesn't understand it or really believe its existence. Yes, Iris's head exploding was coincidental, but death itself fating their entire bloodline to die in freak accidents is a bit of a difficult pill to swallow. Worst of all, it's not Stephanie that's in immediate danger. It's Iris's son and daughter, Howard and Darlene. Darlene abandoned Stephanie and went off the grid a while ago, and Howard thinks Iris was a deranged lunatic. No way Stephanie gets blackpilled, fully read up on death's rules, and is able to convince Uncle Howard and Darlene, let alone the rest of the bloodline, before all their tickets to the spirit realm get punched. Again, Iris should have attempted to break the curse first. Now, everyone's fucked. shocked. Obviously, we can't show what happens next to Howard on YouTube. So instead, here's a video of a lawnmower doing pretty much the same thing to a watermelon. This doesn't make any sense. Why did they back the mower up to the fence handle first? Wheel the front end first, then fold the handlebars over the front. Other than that, I got nothing. Seems like a well-engineered lawnmower to me. Certainly has sufficient torque to cut tall grass after a stormy week. After Howard's head gets mulched and bagged, Stephanie puts in a full Team America study montage of Iris's notebook. Because she has to. Time is a luxury that they don't have, and it's gonna take a lot of hours, coffee, and addies to dig out and parse together all the clues and valuable information. Like this note that she Elmer's glued onto a page in the middle of the book about JB finding somebody who survived. Man, you'd think that would be important enough to warrant its own page. At the front of the book. At least she didn't use chicken scratch cursive for it. God, I fucking hate this notebook. Charlie Day here finally finishes her project in time for show and tell. And nobody cares. Until Julia goes for a jog the following day. Before she even makes it one house down, a tree trimmer falls and bonks the leaf blower guy on the head, causing him to blow leaves into the kids playing soccer in their driveway, causing them to accidentally kick a ball into Julia's head, causing her to fall into the trash bin, which is moments from getting dumped into the compactor. Stephanie, Charlie, and Eric all run after the truck to try to get it to stop, but they're too late. While trying to climb out, her head gets popped like a zit by 40,000 pounds of hydraulic force. Obviously, we can't show this on YouTube either, so instead, here's a video of a hydraulic press doing pretty much the same thing to a watermelon. If you're wondering why Death went after Julia next and not Darlene, apparently it's because Death kills by family branch, not by generation. Just so happened that Howard's side was first. Now that Charlie, Darlene, and Bobby are properly motivated, Stephanie tells them that they need to track down this Bloodworth guy, the only person who supposedly knows someone that actually beat Death for good, and the exact solution that they need to employ. You know, the one solution that Iris didn't really feel like including into her diary. Or maybe she did. Kinda hard to tell. Turns out Bloodworth ain't too hard to find. He works at a mortuary not far from them. Being next to die, Bobby's a bit scared of staying in the house by himself. He wants to pile into the RV with him for the drive to the hospital that Bloodworth works at. Not a good idea. Far too many variables. Bobby just needs to go lay in bed until we get back. They finally track down Bloodworth and he lays out the Kimberly Corman method. What Iris should have told Stephanie 3 deaths ago. The whole things get messy bit is pretty frustrating though. I can't stand when people holding vital information are unnecessarily cryptic and vague. Just tell them if you try to assist a cursed individual with the cheat, you will be targeted for termination until you complete said cheat and break the curse. There, that wasn't so hard. Because that little detail was obfuscated, Eric haphazardly tries to help Bobby with the cheat, and Death claimed them both for it. Stephanie, Charlie, and Darlene all flee to Iris's cabin. I have no idea why. I mean, it's not safe. You know this because Iris's head randomly exploded 2 steps off the porch. We know Darlene's next. And what better place to attempt the cheat code than right here in the hospital? Yeah, that's what Eric and Bobby thought too, but they botched it badly. Their peanut allergy method would have worked had they gone into the bathroom instead of the MRI room. Darlene doesn't have a nut allergy, but that's okay. Just hold her head in the toilet until she flatlines, then drag her limp body out to an ER doctor. If you're gonna roll the dice with death, this is the best place to do it. AEDs used within 1 minute have a 90% survival rate, and that's not even counting the rest of the hospital's arsenal. Epinephrine, crash carts, airway tubes, real-time CPR monitoring, and trained staff whose literal job it is to bring people back from the brink. Steph rams the gate with the RV and slams on the brakes, which knocks a flashlight loose, which falls and breaks her seatbelt latch and jams it. She tells Charlie and Darlene to leave her and get inside, a terrible call that they follow without hesitation. Sure, Stephanie's not next, but that could change in 2 seconds if Darlene trips on her shoelaces and gets impaled on one of the 1,000 steel spike traps littering the property. Darlene's technically the only one in immediate danger, so Charlie could have safely stayed behind to help Stephanie while she got inside the building, which, by the way, has damaged electrical boxes actively showering sparks into dry gutters, igniting a fire on the roof. Inside, a flower pot crashes down and ruptures the gas line. The gas reaches the fire, and the house Michael Bay explodes, flipping the RV straight into the pond. I gotta wonder why Iris would heat her cabin with a gas line, considering the same premonition that's consumed her entire life featured a gas line explosion. Seems kinda dumb. At this point, everyone's screwed. Stephanie's drowning, Charlie's pinned under a burning log, and Darlene's standing dead center in the kill zone, surviving only because death is taking its sweet time picking from the dozen options it has to kill her. She lasts just long enough to free Charlie before the light pole drops like a guillotine and pancakes her.
I'm gonna stay alive as long as
Charlie frees Stephanie from the jammed seatbelt just as she loses consciousness, then immediately resuscitates her with CPR. In the very next scene, Stephanie is accompanying Charlie to his high school prom pictures. They're both all cheery because they think that they broke the curse. There's just one problem. Stephanie never flatlined. She merely went unconscious from hypoxia. It can take a few minutes before your heart actually stops after drowning, and Charlie resuscitated her before that happened. They should have known something was off the moment Stephanie started coughing after just a few compressions. Real CPR often takes 20 to 30 minutes of non-stop effort to bring someone back, and even then, the survival rate hovers around 10%. If she popped up that fast, odds are she never flatlined to begin with. It's kinda mind-blowing just how careless they were about this. Death itself is hunting you. It might be wise to make sure that you broke the curse before going about your life as normal. Just saying. They didn't even attempt to reach out to Kimberly to really assess the conditions that led to her survival and compare them to their conditions. This was a fatal mistake. Death flicks a 2.5 gram soft copper penny into the nearby train track's guide rail, which somehow manages to hold up against steel wheels exerting literal tons of force per square inch, which derails a 400,000-pound train straight into a neighborhood. Sure, that penny was built stronger than the entire Skyview building. Reminds me of that meme with the SWAT team battery ramming a door that's only locked with a small stale Cheeto. In the end, nobody made it out alive, because Iris and Bloodworth handled their knowledge of the curse in probably the worst way possible. Had they taken reasonable courses of action, they'd likely have saved their entire bloodline. And for that reason, I'd say the blood curse in Final Destination Bloodlines was beaten. Moral of the story, embrace the bystander effect.